Genesis Technology Center into a laboratory where they were taking and processing samples in the Arkansas Water Resources Center lab. And one of the guys there looked at me and said, "Who are you?" And it was just the way he said it, about like that. And I was like, "Well, my name's Celia." And he said, "No, who are you?" And I said my name again, and he says, "I never heard of you." And he says, "Everybody knows everybody in the water world." And that was my first introduction to the water world, because everybody knew each other, and it's very true. And I've really enjoyed getting to know more people in the water world, which was new to me 6.5 years ago when I joined the partnership. And I learned about the Illinois River Watershed Partnership and was very interested and attracted to it, because this was a group that had formed to work together, from representing different stakeholder groups, saying, let's work together, let's find solutions to do positive things. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about our watershed and some of the story about the partnership. It is a beautiful river. This is taken on the Oklahoma side. Ed Fife here and Dina Lemesky from Oklahoma, Tahlequah, Oklahoma Scenic Rivers Commission. As Brian said, it has some great maps. You got to see, this doesn't have I-540, but it's always interesting to see it come up north and then skirt around back over here. It takes a big circle around the Cave Springs area. I'm going to tell you a little bit about a project that we're doing there. But a lot of the urban areas are in the Illinois River watershed. Much of Rogers, Springdale, 60% of Fayetteville, 40% of Fayetteville's in the upper White River Basin. But then everything west of that, the Illinois River starts right here in Hogeye, Arkansas. We had a group of about 30 game and fish commissioners and staff at our office today, and one of the questions was, where does the Illinois River start? And that may be one of the questions we get asked most often by teachers and others that have lived here all their lives and didn't really know that the Arkansas-Illinois River starts just south of Fayetteville and Hogeye, actually just south of Hogeye, goes north and then west into Oklahoma. Brian did a great job of explaining a lot of the features of our watershed. It's large, 1.1 million acres between the two states, 7 counties, 20 cities, 2 states. That's a lot of jurisdictions that are overseeing what we're going to talk about for a few minutes, and that's watershed management and protection. This is just some more information about land use changes over time from some of the information from our watershed management plan that's on our website if you wanted to find out more information about what we're talking about and what our goals are for the coming years. But from 1992, we don't have to tell anybody here, from 1992 to 2006, a lot of changes in our watershed, and even more changes predicted. So when we say our urban areas really doubled from 1992 to 2006, they went from 6% to 13%. That's projected, actually it's 22% of the planting area is now in urban land use. That's predicted to go to 58% of the watershed in 2050. So that's a major shift in land use. And agriculture went from 64% in pasture to down to 46% in pasture from 92 to 96. So a decrease in that, a growth in the other direction. And so all of those trends are things that we try to work with to know where we can best solve problems or improve and protect our watershed. This I took from the Northwest Arkansas Council's annual report and information just to give you an idea of the story of our watershed. So when we think about the largest employer in the world, actually, next to our watershed, technically the headquarters is in the next watershed, but since they discharge half to our watershed, we claim them, and they claim us, which is really great. But J.B. Hunt, Tyson Foods, McKee Foods, America's #1 snack food cakes, company is here in our watershed. This is really interesting, though. The 3 largest companies in our watershed exceed all the annual revenue of the Fortune 500 companies in Los Angeles and Atlanta. I think we forget about, when they say the economic engine, we forget about the dimensions of that. And I don't bring that up to except to say we have to take all of these factors into consideration when we're looking at the profile of our watershed. So it's very interesting. We have a lot of these corporations that are sponsors, and not only financially, but also we had 60 volunteers from Anheuser-Busch, Sam's Club, and Walmart out at our sanctuary a Saturday ago, and we're helping plant trees and clean up and build trail and different things. They do a lot. They do a lot of projects in our watershed as well. So one of the things that we're focused on as a partnership is how do you break down the issues for people, because sometimes you hear so many different things, you don't know what to do. What do I do with that information? And this was a framework that really helped me understand watershed protection. So I'm going to just go through these 8 tools and give you a few examples of what we're doing to do watershed protection using these 8 tools, which are outlined in the Center for Watershed Protection manuals and so on. Watershed planning. We spent about 4 years doing a watershed management plan. I know the Beaver Lake also has a watershed management plan. There are 10 priority watersheds in Arkansas. We are the only 2 that have a watershed management plan. The other 8 do not have watershed management plans. And you need a watershed management plan to get federal funds for a lot of your projects. So we'll see a lot of those other watersheds working on watershed management plans so that they can incorporate these elements in planning and projects into their watersheds. But what we did from that really prioritized what are the sub-basins that needed the actions first. And of those 28 sub-watersheds, 4 really came out high on a number of scales, and those were Clear Creek, 2 around Lake Weddington, and Sager Creek. And those are listed for different reasons for stream reaches that don't meet water quality standards for different reasons. Nitrates in Siloam Springs, some were for phosphorus, also for sediment, and pathogens, actually, in the case of the Clear Creek watershed. So the watershed management plan looks at those water quality indicators. Brian showed where they're taking samples across the watershed and then saying where are the stream reaches that need help the most, where we can get to work. And these are the recommendations. I love it when we can break it down and take a look at it. Really, in the areas we've talked about, forested pasture, unpaved roads. We have 1,300 miles of unpaved roads in the Upper Illinois River watershed, the Arkansas portion. That's the same amount of streams miles that we have in the watershed. So a lot of unpaved roads and a lot of urban areas. But when you look at these different best management practices, you see over and over again riparian buffer zones, vegetation, porous pavers, pasture management, things like that. So we can address all of those issues in both urban and rural areas. Pasture management, there's different NRCS recommended best management practices. There are programs for landowners. We try to get that information to them, both from NRCS and Farm Service Agency. There's forest management practices, unpaved road management practices, since we have such a large amount of unpaved roads. I've lived 34 years on an unpaved road myself, and never thought I would. I grew up in Phoenix, but I love it. So we love living in the country, but there's ways that we can manage that. And then urban management, again, includes riparian vegetation, stormwater management, municipal wastewater treatment, and septic system. Did you know that this week is Septic System Repair Week? So we'll celebrate that tonight as part of our forum. We just completed a study with USGS that looked at 18 sites, and Brian talked about the chemical and also the biological indicators of water quality. And this was a study that's really focused on the biological indicators, the fish, the macroinvertebrates or bugs, and the algae at these 18 sites, and doing some comparison, so it's not apples to apples, but it's data that can be compared to that taken in 1996. But this is a pretty broad study that gives us an indication of how well are the fish populations doing in comparison to the water quality samples and so on. And here they are taking samples off I-540 by Cross Church up at the headwaters of Osage Creek, just one of the areas. So that's a little bit about watershed planning. Where do you start? What are the areas that you should begin? And this watershed management plan is a tool to help us and the cities and other groups start working. Land conservation is a tool. How do we put that into practice? The governor signed, and let's see, where's Joyce? There she is, right in the middle of it. Here's Joyce Hale, right in the big middle of anything good going on in our state. Joyce and, oh look, there's Bob Cock, and let's see, who else is in here? I bet there's some more. These women voters in here. The league sponsored a significant forum at the time and brought together a lot of the different stakeholder groups, and this was legislation the governor signed for conservation easements and perpetual easements as well. And that was really significant. I think that got the ball rolling in a lot of these different programs, Joyce, for the Illinois River Watershed, so thank you for that. Randy Young here with Arkansas Natural Resources Commission, and of course Valley's Lindsay. He is also one of our board members, but was significant in making that legislation possible. That's the beginning of land conservation, having programs that landowners can benefit from, that value their property, that they maybe have spent generations passing down. How can they preserve and protect it? And these are programs that can help them do that. There's also federal programs from USDA, NRCS EQIP, and USDA Farm Service Agency CREP. Both of these are conservation programs for landowners. One is the EQIP is Environmental Quality Incentives Program. That's to help them be more productive on their land by using best management practices. CREP is Conservation Reserve Enhancement, so that's taking land out of production and putting it into a conservation. We think that has a great benefit, and they receive cost share benefits to help them do that. This is an area that would be, here's the stream going along here. This is a landowner that we help put these areas in red into a CREP easement. So he could plant trees and native grasses. This is a old fish kind of farm here. This is Dr. Larry Tuttle's property a ways, but we filled in riparian buffers in this area here, and this area here. So those are some examples of land conservation. We're also partnering coming up, and you're invited to a free dinner. If you haven't been to the new Simmons Drake Hall at John Brown University, October 17th, to hear more from the Northwest Arkansas Land Trust and the Nature Conservancy about conservation programs for landowners in the Illinois River watershed. Riparian buffers, you've heard that word before. We love to hear a 3-year-old say riparian, and we have a Clean Water Ranger program that has a song called Riparian Buffers, and we hear that parents just want to scream after their 3-year-old asks to hear that song over and over and over again. But if you'd like to take a CD, they're right over here. But the whole idea is the area next to a creek, stream, and Brian says reservoir. We think of our lakes as lakes. They're really all reservoirs. We have no natural lakes, but we think of them as lakes. Rivers, lakes, and streams, it's the land next to those that can help be filters for any kind of pollutants, uptake excess nutrients, help water quality. So here's an example, and this is a pretty good example. Actually, this came from Dr. Andrew Sharpley, so I like to use this because he's an expert in it. But here's land with a healthy riparian buffer. It could be even more, but that's an example providing benefits to this waterway here. Here's a riparian buffer, and this is Dan Douglas, another one of our board members, who was on the Benton County Forum Board at the time. The Rogers Fire Department helped us come out and plant trees. This is along Blossom Way Creek, just south of Rogers Heritage High School, where there's a big subdivision right over here, great big huge 5 culverts coming out and hitting this Blossom Way Creek. So this riparian buffer in an urban stream needed some help. We planted trees there about 5 years ago, and this is what it looked like more than a year ago away, and that area is growing back in pretty nice. This year we'll plant, I think we reached over 20,000 seedlings in the last 5 years, and usually in the 7 different cities along trails that have been really great areas to come back alongside and plant trees. These are trees that were planted seedlings into 5-gallon containers, and then they grew out at Flint Creek Power Plant Tree Farm. We've got 1,000 more this year that we'll be planting. They're really beautiful trees. We just put in 25 at the sanctuary, and people like to come out and help us plant trees. Boy Scout troops. This is at the city of Fayetteville down along Mission Boulevard just this past March, where the highway, the new road went in and needed some help putting trees back in, dibble bars and so on. Low impact development and green infrastructure are probably words you're very familiar with. They've been around Bob's talk any length of time. We're looking at doing rain gardens, rain garden academies, helping people know what is low impact development, how can I implement those things like Karen did, putting in a rain garden at her home along Mount Sequoia and so on. We teach rain gardens to kids at our rain garden or our watershed camps. We do a lot of schools. There's 30 rain gardens in the Illinois and 30 in the Beaver Lake watershed to be demonstration rain gardens. Those are all about stormwater retention, infiltration, filtering out pollutants, and so on. Here's a rain garden going in at Prairie Grove Senior Center. These were grants. EPA also recognizes the benefit of these, both for their environmental benefits, but also for their educational benefits, so there are a lot of demonstration gardens. This is along the trail, along Rogers Horse Barn Trail. It's a pretty large rain garden there, and it follows the creek and stream, but here's what it looks like after it's been established, even just for a short while.
We're going to run out of time.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
So I'll just go on and get, so again, the other steps are stormwater management, septic systems, and watershed stewardship. So,
sorry.
Well, thanks for moving me along. And these are some pictures from our Cave Springs development. We bought 30 acres there.
We need to see that, yeah.
A lot of people drive by here on Highway 12, and it's the little lake right there in Cave Springs, formerly called Lake Keith, after E.L. Keith. There's a cave right back in here that's home to the largest population of the Ozark blind cavefish, or the Ozark cavefish that are blind, and a large population of gray bats, and a partnership was able to buy it. This spring, this year, this is down last summer where the water was coming out. The spring has been coming over this all since last spring. And we'll be able to do a watershed education center there, cave, and so on. So these are just some positive steps in education, motivation, action for watershed protection. So thanks so much.